Hey folks, let's do some editing. What I've got here is, probably don't need full screen. What I've got here is a handful of some of my images that I took at a workshop this last weekend. Evoke Photo Group does group photo shoots, multiple photographers, multiple models. So I think we had at least 7 photographers shooting 7 models over. I think the shoot started at about noon and went to 5 or 6 p.m. So quite a bit of time with each of the models and do photography. You know how hard it is can be sourcing and coordinating models. So it's a wonderful opportunity for photographers, I guess, and models. The prices were reasonable, especially if you do the math and think about what the total cost was divided by the models. And then on top of it, the shoot was held at Flaunt Studios in Auburn. And so I can't remember the cost off the top of my head. I paid for it so long ago, but it was super reasonable, really reasonable. I remember not even flinching. I remember doing the quick math and was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. And on top of that, really wonderful models. So that's usually the drawback for a lot of group shoots that I've been to is they are inexpensive. Models are usually not necessarily lower quality, but usually less experience and more women or people that are trying to get into modeling versus established models. And as you can see, these are all wonderful models. But anyways, back to auditing. The whole purpose of this video is to go through my editing process. I just picked somewhat random, so after culling all the derpy, that's not the best way to say it, but after culling out all the images that were a little bit blurry or the models with their eyes closed or not in a flattering light, what did I end up with? I think I had, so my hit rate wasn't very good. I think I was closer to 3,000 images than 2,000 before doing my culling, but probably don't have to get into that. I think I've got another video on how I do my culling, but these are all ones, I believe, if you look over here. So if I want it, basically my editing process is as I'm going through images, as I'm clicking through them, and I see images that I want to take another look at possibly editing later. What I'll do is just select I'll make them a 1, and then what I'll do is I'll go through the ones, and any of the ones that I really love after editing, I'll make a 2. And then stuff that I want in my portfolio, I haven't gotten that far into this process yet, so I haven't really gone through my 2s yet. But if I want them in my portfolio, I'll go through the 2s, and then my favorite 2s or whatever, I'll make a 3. And I'm lucky if at a photo shoot I end up with 1 image that I want in my portfolio, or what I call my portfolio. And then I don't really use 4s and 5s too much. 4s will be like, I'll use it for if I want to, if they're for a specific model has 3 or 4 favorites that they want or whatever. Or if I go back sometimes and I'll re-edit, I'll do different versions of 3s, say make some black and whites, or sometimes I'll go back a year later into my 3s and look through them and I'll be like, oh yeah, look, that'd be cool in black and white, but it's not, I don't want to reuse the 3, so I'll make them a 4. But I don't use 4s and 5s too often. It's hard enough, time being what it is, to have enough time to take a first pass for your 1s, a first pass, another pass for your 2s, and then a third pass for your 3s. But I'm always looking for those 3s. Colors I use just for this, so I wanted to pull out some images for this video, so I just quickly went through them and I was like, oh, I think that'd be a good one for this, so I marked it with a color. So that's why pink is selected. I've already done some editing. You can see 108 of them of the total have been edited. And then what I do, probably the first thing I do after culling is I'll tag the images by the model, so that makes it easy to share with them afterwards. But let's go back up to the top. So what we're going to do is edit them. None of these are too bad out of the camera. I don't want to make this too hard, but definitely I kind of touch every one of my images before sharing them out with the models or posting them online. I'm getting a lot better at getting stuff that I like just right in the camera, but I also like to, that's the cool thing about these apps, Capture One and Lightroom and Photoshop these days, is it makes it so easy to play with and experiment with stuff. And then I usually want different versions Not everything I like in black and white, but I guess before where I used to, pretty much all my black and white photos were just because I couldn't figure out how to work with color very well, and black and white makes it so much easier. You just deal with the monochrome. But nowadays I'm using black and white more and more artistically. So why don't we get started? It's interesting to me, actually, before we get started. I always take a look at, it's kind of cool to go back and see what your camera settings were. I know my lens that I used was a 35 to 150 Tamron. It's in its wide open, so f2 range. Shutter speed 1/200. That's usually, if I'm using a strobe, that's kind of a default setting. ISO, usually default setting is 100, but it's always interested. I got this big fancy zoom lens, and it's kind of interested to see them for this type of photography. I'm around 35 millimeter. I should have just took my nice light 35 out of the bag. But typically, I know that if I want to catch a model's full body, I'm usually shooting at 35. Typically for stuff like this, I'm at 50. So it's interesting that that's 35. But for indoors, for this type of shoot, I'm not surprised. I would think that more of them would be at 50 because they're not full length. If I wanted to catch your feet, I'd probably be out to 50. Or I'm just the opposite. So let's see. These that are close up should be 50. These that are full body, it's not surprising that they're 35. Now let's get started. All right, so this is Cali. I have there's nothing worse than getting home and seeing the wonderful time that you spent and all the images that you took are blurry. So you'll see me double click these. I got my reading glasses on, but that's kind of a nervous tick. I definitely will zoom in and just check my focus just to make sure that I am in focus. I'm getting a lot better at that. A trick that I do now is before I used to have focus issues because as a new photographer for my portraiture, I wanted whatever my wide open setting was on my lens. And I'm sure all of the photographers that are listening have gone through this phase. You basically just shoot wide open, so narrow focal length. So that being said, it makes it harder to catch, even with the camera's amazing autofocus these days. You have a very narrow range of things being in focus, but as I'm maturing as a photographer, I shoot less wide open. So in this case, my wide open for this lens is f2. I'm at f5. So even though I do blow out things, and this does still blow out the background a little bit, everything else is nice and sharp. So artistically, I'll go in and shoot wide open once in a while, but a lot less misses these days now that I'm not shooting wide open for everything. You'll see, like looking here. So this one was wide open. I'll talk about this image in a bit, but for the most part, you'll see me bounce around between wide open and f4, f5. This one is Cali, really good focus. So no sense editing an image and then double clicking on it and seeing that it's out of focus. So the first thing I do is just to confirm that it's an image that I want to edit. The face is in focus. And then my philosophy for editing portraiture, so not to be confused with art or me experimenting with technology or tools, but portraiture, my emphasis is always, and even when I pulled up to the shoot or when I was packing my gear for the shoot, was the star of the show is the model, right? So anything else is secondary or tertiary. When I'm editing and before I even pull the camera out of the bag, doesn't matter who the model is the star of the show. And my lighting setup, my camera settings, my post-processing, which is what we're doing now, editing, is really, my goal is to make whoever the model is shine. And you do it in a lot of ways. You do it with the setting, you do it with your setup. You always have that in the back of the mind when you're shooting pictures. I say you, but I mean me. Everybody's got different philosophies. But in my mind, when I'm looking at a model, trying to figure out what pose or image it, at which times I want to take a picture of them as they're going through their poses and stuff. The whole thing main thing that I'm thinking is catch them when they're at their most beautiful. And beautiful seems kind of a feminine way to say it, but even for men, capture them when they look the best. So That being said, let's do that. And so what you'll see is, so when I crop, so I love this red. In a lot of cases, I love the background and I can appreciate all the work that's gone into setting up a scene. Whether it's a beautiful place or a beautiful beach, that's all wonderful, but it's secondary. My main goal is to make the model look as good as I can. And so my cropping will reflect that. There's no sense having this area around the model because it's not as important as the model. I want to focus on the model. So my crops will reflect that. I like to crop in 4x5, even though full sensor cameras, you get a lot more area than 4x5, but typically I'll crop 4x5. I like the way it looks on my social media. It's an easy frame to buy if you're going to print these out and put them in a frame. And for my eye, that's just what I like. So we'll go 4x5. I also will crop to where the center of the image is below the model's face. So you rarely see the center being above the model's face. I like to look up at the model, and if you watch me shoot, my camera is usually around center of mass or lower. This, as I'm saying this, on my periphery, I see this one over here. I was standing and she was down on the ground, so that's why I snapped that one. But if you look at the rest of them, so this would be where the camera height is tilted up at the model. Even this one, she's farther away, but I'm below her. He's down on the floor, so it's a little hard to get much lower, but I'm down under him. That's why you'll see me, I got a big heavy camera, but I don't wear a shoulder strap because I like to stretch the camera closer to the floor than usually I want to lean over for. So that's why you'll see me without a shoulder strap. I need to get one of those hand straps because one of these days I'm going to drop it. But anyways, this is Sarah. I guess, again, I'm below her. I'm about straight on with her, actually. She was sitting and I was standing, but this one in particular, I guess I am a little higher than usual. But the heads are definitely above the center of the frame, and I'll crop to make them, most of the time, close to the top. All right, so we did the crop. Next thing I do is I'll look at the warmth of the image, or the white balance. So I've got my flash over here. It's about 3/4 high. I've also got, I remember this red satin was disappearing. So you couldn't see it. You could just see her in the flash. So what I did is I have my hair light, another strobe that I had pointing right at this side of the bed to like this red. I didn't need a ton of the red, but I wanted just a little bit of red to contrast with the rest of it. So, and then also I did open or close the lens a little bit to catch a little more of that. So crop is fine. So next thing I'll look at a white balance. I think the white balance is pretty good. She's maybe a little cool, but if in doubt, take a look. So I'll slide this over a little bit and warm it up. So this, you could get really crazy and make it warm. I know I definitely went through a phase where my white balance to the warm side. It's no longer my favorite, but that might be a little cool. So maybe just a hair or two warmer, I'll make this. This is Callie, by the way. This was the first of my shoots for the day, and right off the bat, we were in the boudoir room, and it would have been nice to warmed up a little bit before we made it to the boudoir room, but just especially new model, new place, new hosts, new studio, new setting, and it was just like you walk in, and even though this boudoir room has a bed, there's probably 4 or 5 different areas in the room that are set up differently for different shoots. So anyways, this was the first shoot of the day, and that being said, Kelly was wonderful. She came to play. I'd never met her before, and she was awesome. So let's get back to editing. So some other things that I think about. So again, we talked about focus. So now it's in focus. Great. Now you can see everything on a person's face. Her face and her skin is flawless. I still like to always look whether their skin is flawless or not. Capture One has this cool blemish removal, and so if I wanted to be nitpicky, sorry Callie, but none of us are perfect. If I wanted to be nitpicky, in the past I would use the heel tool. I see just a little red spot there. And then my goal for blemish removal my goal and my philosophy, I didn't invent it, but if it's something that's temporary, if it's just like a pimple or a blemish or whatever, and it's going to be gone in a week or two, those are the things that I'll remove. So before you could use the heal tool, I can make it a little bit bigger. Let's see, make it a little bit bigger and click on that and poof, it's gone. And then what you do is you'd bump around and hit her face with where there's any blemishes that you wanted to remove. But you don't have to do that anymore. So I'll get rid of that layer. When you use the heal tool, it'll automatically create a layer and capture one. So I can get rid of that layer. And in the last few months or whatever, there's a new blemish or retouch setting where, and most people, I rarely go more than 20. But if we go over here and look at the before and after, I don't want to remove all of her wonderful freckles, but you could, if you look here where this blemish is after, but that's a little too much. So let's go back and knock that down. I really just want to, this might be a case where I would just use that heal tool, but let's just go maybe just a little bit. Let's do 5. Like I said, her skin is perfect and we're just being nitpicky, and I don't want to do that. So again, keeping in mind that the model is a star, even though I went through all the trouble of setting a light over here, and thank you, Callie, for being patient with me while we got that set up. I don't need all of it. This red does take away from the model, so there's a couple ways that we could do it. There's a couple masks that we could use. I could go over here and use this gradient mask, right, and then darken it. If you hold down the shift key, it'll make it perfectly vertical. You can darken it this way, right, so you can see it disappear and come back. That's probably an option. Also, it's funny, we spend all this money on lenses that don't have any vignetting. If you watch the Pixel Peeping review videos on lenses, they always talk about, oh, it's got no vignetting out towards the edges. But the first thing I do is I blow out the background and make everything blurry. So you spend all that money on a crisp, clear lens. And then the second thing I do is I vignette. So let's see what vignette does. So as I'm doing this, as I'm playing with vignette, I'm keeping my eye on the model and seeing what it does to the model. So that's an option. I don't need it dark on the whole image, though. So that's an option. And I already know the answer to this question, but I'll take you through some of the things that I'll try. I don't like how when I do vignetting, it darkens her face. So let's try this one. We'll make a new mask, and it's a radiant mask, a radial mask. So we'll put this over her face. Again, she's the star of the show. And then the red part is what's actually going to be affected. And so we'll take a look at that. And I like that. But I think I want to see more of her chest, and I could like her shoulder lit up. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to hit M to get rid of it. And then let's look at before and after. So I think that's, for my taste, I like that. So she's the star of the show. We can still see, artistically, we could see the heart-shaped pillow. We got that little bit of red pop here that I want. But it's no longer, neither of these things are no longer distracting. To my eye, this is a big light bulb here, and that takes away from the model. And then this red, as much as I like that, a little pop of red, I don't want it taking away from her as either. Let's go back here. So after I made that change, I'll go back and I'll take a look. Is my brightness on her face still good? Is the white balance still good? Sometimes when you decrease the brightness or the exposure, it'll warm an image up. So I'll go back. It's a little bit nitpicky since we'll take a look here, and then always make sure that your brightness is turned up on your laptop. I think for my taste, I think that's pretty good. We can do another thing that I'll look at is so for me, the face is important and the eyes are important. Excuse me. Something that's easy to do in Capture One is they've got some new mask settings. So I'll play with this pupil and iris. So if I hit Create Mask using AI, it'll select her pupil and iris. And then what's kind of fun sometimes is, if you zoom in a little bit, whoopsie, for portraiture, to play with her iris a little bit. And what happens, this is a subtle thing. You could go crazy and really make it bright, but sometimes I'll go a stop or two to brighten them up a little bit. And then something else that you could do with eyes is Capture One as a sharpening tool. So you could also go, I'm usually around 100 more here, and then radius really pull way in. radius really pulls the detail out in the iris. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of that. But if you go too crazy with this, it doesn't look very natural. As I'm zoomed in here, nobody is going to pixel peep like I did before, but this would be a case for the healing tool where I'll use this for eyelashes. The problem with the healing tool is you got to watch where it pulls its reference area from. Oops, what are we doing here? Oh, I think I know what's up. I need to make another mask. Pupil and iris. Oh, yeah. I'm outside of the pupil and iris. Let's just make another one real quick, and then we'll go back into this healing tool. So, got to show the arrows. So, we just want the eye. I don't know why it picks that part of the eye. That's probably fine. This one, I don't know why that's there. It's fine. That's super nitpicky, but since we did one, let's look at the other. All right, I think we spent enough time on Callie here. Let me go back and center it. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so we'll call that one done. Let's do before and after. So pretty subtle changes. You try to do the best as you can as capturing as close as you can with the camera. I guess over time you just get better and better at that. So I remember when I first started spending a lot more time in editing. The nice thing about Capture One too is you could copy these settings, and so like there's 20 similar images. You could copy and paste this, and it'll even whatever settings you make or whatever changes you make with this people and iris mask or all these people masks and stuff with AI, it'll actually find in this case like the people and iris of every image and then make those changes. The one thing that it doesn't do very good when you copy and paste is the heal layer. That doesn't work very well. But and then what you could do is if you use this setting a lot, you can make a custom what do they call it? A custom style or preset. I don't really do that because I don't feel like they transfer over. I wouldn't be able to copy and paste these settings to this image. They're just so different. The warmth would be the color balance would be all wonky, and yeah, it just doesn't. I just find myself not using them. Copying paste seems to work fine for me. This is Selena. I've worked with Selena before. She brought this big billowy dress. I love the way it looks. I'm not so sure I'm so in love with the color, but I love the billowiness and the fluffiness of it. Maybe if that red bra strap or whatever is bugging me a little bit. I love the wig. Let's see if she's in focus. What do we want to do with this one? It's pretty close. There's not a lot, but let's do my thing. So just like before, I'll look at, I think the white balance is pretty good. I don't know if I like this background is a little bit kind of dirty for me, but these colors are kind of dirty as well, but so maybe not do too much. This is a case where I think I want to see what this looks like in black and white, just because I don't know, the colors are stressing me out a little bit. So let's see. Step one, color balance. So I think it's pretty close. That might harmonize things a little bit, making it a lot warmer. Cool. I don't know. And portraiture I don't usually go cool, but warmer might be nice just because it harmonizes those colors. Something I might do is try desaturating her bra strap. So let me reset that to where it was. And the way that you do that, Capture One makes it really easy to select stuff. So I'd probably make a new layer, and then I'd use the AI brush, and you can see it's really good about selecting specific things. I could just select her hand if I wanted. I could select the dress or parts of the dress if I wanted. Her hair, her face, her as a subject versus the background. If you zoom in, it even gets even better. Oops, to where I want real quick. And then we'll go back to the AI brush. And in this case, it'll select her bra strap, and you can double check it by hitting the M button. And then what you can do is you can make it really accurate by refining the mask. The default I think is 300. But now you can see, ooh, we got a little bit of her hair selected, but that's easy too to remove with the AI erase tool. So I'll subtract all of that out. And now we're just got her bra strap. Oop, there's a little bit here too. We'll get rid of. You might not be able to see it on the video, but by checking the mask visibility, I could see the other areas that are getting captured. I don't think it's good enough to get her hair. We don't want to change that at all. There we go. So just her bra strap is selected. We'll zoom back out a little bit. And then what I was thinking is maybe trying to desaturate that a little bit. So we can make it all the way desaturated. Maybe desaturate and then darken it a bit. Makes it disappear. To me that makes a little more sense. Selena's probably going to kill me, but we skipped our crop. So let's crop it. I don't want to cut off. It's kind of weird. Artistically, I'll crop people's heads a little bit, but for this, I'll leave a little bit of space just in case. Make some room for a frame. Let's see, got a little bit of her hair chopped off. I like that. Again, she's the star of the show. Let's see what we could do with vignetting. Oh, and then let's go back to this layer. Vignetting works on the image layer, so it doesn't matter. Ooh, I like that. This is a case where I like vignetting all by itself. I think that looks beautiful. How about skin retouching? She's got just nobody's perfect again. She's got a couple red dots. Let's see what we could do with the blemish removal. Again, just a little bit. As I'm moving the slider, I'm watching one red dot that I want to see at least. It doesn't have to remove it, but just to take the saturation out of it or the brightness of it. So I think that's fine. I think we need to go much farther than that. And then this is something I said earlier, just because for me the colors kind of clash. This is different than this red, which is also different from the red of her skin. That's usually not a big deal. But 4 different reds going on is a lot for me. It stresses me out. So let's take a look at what this looks like in black and white. And I have a preset I could just hit. For my style of black and white, I have a preset that's just, I hit Apple 3, and that's my style of black and white. But let's see, I'll go through my process with you. So I'll hit Apple 3 again, and then we'll start from scratch. So what I do in Capture One is they just have a toggle for black and white. And then in the style of Peter Carlson, I take that contrast slider and I move it all the way to the left. So that gets rid of all the presets for contrast that I just find that that's fine. That's probably like what you can get on your iPhone. I like this. It opens up the shadows a little bit. Then what I'll also do is I'll go down here to the curves and I'll just make an S curve. So you click in the center of curves. You want to make sure that you're on Luma. Luma is light as opposed to the colors. This is all the colors. This is light. This is the colors broken out, red, green, blue. You want to be on Luma. And then what I'll do is I'll make a little S. You just drag a quarter of it. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll bring in the margins. So I like it, what I like the darkest dark. So this side is, this limits how dark you can go. This limits how light you can go. Well, let me say that differently. This limits how light your darkest darks can be. This limits how dark your lightest lights can be. So as you see this, as I move this in, it removes the light from the dark. So ultimately making it darker. But I like it open like that. So probably not going to mess with that at all. Let's see, you could do command click to check where you were. Oops, it got rid of it. Again, just a simple S curve. It darkens that dark area a little bit, lightens the light area a little bit. And then the other thing that I'll do is I'll go up to my whites under HDR or high dynamic range. I'll take a look at those. Don't really need that any different. I'll look at the darks. That with the S curve. Don't want to go too crazy. Clarity I don't mess with. Shadows are open quite a bit. You could really make it look like an old-timey image. I don't need that much detail in the shadows. But maybe like that. So after, I like that. That's a nice clean black and white for me. Capture One, like I said, it does have some presets. Let me clone this one. Oh, I should have cloned it last time. Let's see. Let's go undo that. My layers, strap, adjustment layer. All right. What I should have done is made a copy of it. Enable black and white. Contrast is gone. Oh, got to put the contrast back in this one, I think. Contrast is gone. We got our little S curve. There we go. I think that's enough for Selena. Just check. We got our vignetting still. Check our about 9. Just make it an even 10. It's good. I like our crop. I think that's good. But so black and white color. Again, that kind of stresses me out, the colors, but I like the black and white. Oh, let's see. This young lady. This was a cool set. This girl's name is Tay. She's a young cutie. We had an option of the stairs in the cafe area, and there were some folks set up at the cafe area. I think a couple of photographers, significant others, were set up at the cafe area, so we ended up using the stairs. But that's what this sign is from, this cool neon sign. As I'm looking at this, those stairs were hard. I have stairs in my house that I shoot on sometimes too, and I'm just like, there's a couple poses that I like on them, but for the most part, I don't know what to do with these stairs. But she was a trooper. So let's go through it. As I'm talking, I'm kind of mentally looking at the white balance. The off-white was a little bit warm, but definitely the way I shot these makes it look even warmer. I don't know if I want to mess with it at all, but maybe we'll take a look at that. I just like this pose because she's smiling and having fun, and I think I got her in between poses, but she looks cute and looks like she's having fun. So let's go through my process. So again, we'll look at the crop. I like 4x5. I'd rather have her whole hand and chop a little bit of her knee. I think that's good. I think the light on her skin is really good. So I'm thinking about white balance now. But let's take a look. So when you go either to one side or the other, it unifies the colors, but you sacrifice. I like the natural skin tone. She's really fair skinned, but I like that fair skin. Not too pink, no red spots. Sometimes if you're working hard or whatever, you get a model upside down or they're blushing for whatever reason, their skin will be red in this area, and sometimes that looks weird. But I like her skin tone in this image. Maybe we'll take a look at what happens if I cool this off or desaturate the stairs, it'll fix. My only problem with this is these stairs and the wall look yellow, so that's what I'm hemming and hawing about. But Capture One makes it easy to select the stairs. So I could either do it by grabbing the whole background, which I think would be fine. So to get rid of the yellow, we'll knock down the saturation a bit. So does that help it or does that hurt it? So I think that helps it. I don't think we have to go full black and white because then that makes it look weird. But maybe just a little bit cooler. Let's look before and after. The edges of the stairs are kind of dirty. Why don't we see what vignetting does as well? Because maybe we just get rid of the stairs. How about let's go back and just knock the brightness down on just the background. That's probably a little more to my style. And then I think instead of vignetting, I think I'm just going to do a radial mask. So we keep her, and then we got to invert it. So that eye button will invert it, and then we'll knock down the brightness even more. There we go. I like that. So now, the stairs were distracting because they were kind of yellow and bright. And so now we fixed that with two different adjustments. We knocked the saturation and brightness down in the background, and then we took it another step further by making that radial mask and basically knocking down the brightness on everything but her face. So that makes me feel better. This kind of spotlight effect also has a little bit to do with, I think the softbox that I brought was a 24-inch, so pretty small softbox. It's actually perfect for portraits for me, because I blow out everything but the model's face anyways, but it's kind of a small softbox, so every once in a while, and it has a grid, so every once in a while it looks like you got a spotlight on the model, but I don't mind that at all. And then let's see, so moving on, let's I should have checked focus and stuff first, but I already did, just FYI, I checked focus before I picked these. But her focus is pretty good, and you know what? Her skin is perfect. I don't see, nothing stands out to me where I'd want to remove it. I think she's perfect. Well, she was really fun. I like Taya. I'm looking forward to working with her again. So let's call that one done. This is Angel. Angel, she's a lot taller than she looks. She's super tall. I just remember different styles of hair she wore throughout the shoot. She come off quiet, but then every once in a while she would hit you with this big smile that just, to me, I could hear it. I'm not sure how she is when she's comfortable or whatever, but she would go from being quiet and introspective and maybe a little introverted to hello, and definitely love to work with her more. This setting wasn't our chosen setting. Our setting was the kitchen setting, which I don't know. I think I think Angel goes with kitchens, like I go with triathlons. I don't know. I definitely, especially for what she was wearing, the setting kind of seemed to match. But we were on a break, and I was sitting across from her, probably looking at images on my camera, and she was just sitting on the swing, I think looking at her phone or whatever. So we had about 10 minutes before we were actually going to shoot in the kitchen or whatever, and I just looked up and realized how well her, even look at the color of this red shirt with the color of the flowers in the background. She just looked perfect where she was sitting or whatever. So we took about a minute or two and just grabbed a few shots with her sitting on the swing with this flower garden background theme. And I love the way they turned out. As I'm talking here, I'm kind of going through my process again. So let's get started. There's not much I want to do with this, but we'll check them all. So we'll do our crop. There's nothing I could do. I don't like to cut off limbs or whatever, but we've already cut off that limb. When you crop, you want to crop past the joint generally. And then using my aspect ratio for my crop. So you got to decide what you want to lose. So I think I like the glasses. I'd rather have the glasses, I think, than her crotch. And then we've got just enough of her bikini bottom to show that she's wearing a bikini and that it is popping the way the rest of her set is popping. Just not like, let me hit enter to do the crop, but even her eye makeup and stuff, the way it matches with the background. The only thing that's a little weird to me is maybe the color of her straps, and I think these are little ribbons on her bra, but just the way those colors are all in harmony to me, versus for some reason that's less stressful to me than the way these colors match. I have to take a look on the color wheel and see why that stresses me out so much. But looking at the color balance, I don't know. I think that color balance is fine. In this case, there's nothing to harmonize. Everything is already in harmony. And then you start messing with color balance on the skin tones or whatever, and then we'll jack that up. I like that. I think that color balance is fine. I'm not even going to experiment. Maybe a vignette either a vignette or something to darken the highlight on her elbow there. Maybe a vignette just to focus on her face a little more. So let's just see what straight up vignetting does. Maybe just a little bit. But I actually like the light, the way that I must have had my softbox back quite a ways or whatever, because the light falls all the way down to her waist area. All right, this is nitpicky, but let me see what I could do about how bright her elbow is. Move that out a bit, just a little bit, right? Again, I just want to get rid of everything that's taken away from her face. All right, I think I like that. Let's see, look at before and after. So far, not too much of changes. Let's go back to our image layer real quick and take a look at her skin for retouching. Her skin is pretty great, actually. I'd kill to have skin like that. I see a little redness on her chin, just a little dot or two, but man, her skin is pretty perfect, right? But in the spirit of taking a look, in the spirit of let's just see, I don't know. I don't think she needs it. Let's get rid of it. It looks great to me. Beautiful model. Looking forward to working with her again sometime. Let's see. Oh, I hope I got your name right. I'm pretty sure this is Erin. I love that light and her fair skin. Look at those eyes. She looks like she means serious business, but beautiful. I got a chance to talk to her a little bit out at the picnic area. Just a cool person. So let's see. What's bugging me about this? I think I've got a little bit of a tilt in the camera. So vertically, I think we need to straighten this one out a little bit. This wall is bugging me. She looks amazing. The crop, obviously. I could see two crops. I could see something really close in on her. We'll have to see how good the focus is, and then something maybe full length, or maybe from her hands to her head. So why don't we make a copy of this now before I forget about it? So we've got two versions. So I think, and then maybe we'll do a black and white, but we'll worry about that later. I love just a little bit. You can just see a little bit of the red there. So let's straighten this damn thing. Or actually, let's crop in and then we'll straighten it. So 4x5. We'll do this one. Man, I think just to the bottom of her knee. We'll center her a little bit as much as we can. So eyes are in the center. That's the important part. I'm cropped below the joint. So you crop below the knee, not above the knee. Got her, didn't crop her hand off. That white is bugging me right there, but we'll get rid of that. But first, we got to tilt her a little bit, I think. So I'm looking at this line right here, this dark shadow, and then I'm also looking at her face. I think that looks pretty good. It tilts her head, but I think I'd rather, that's, the tilt of her head is, her body's straight, the tilt of her head is tilted, so that's fine. And then I think we could go even more on that straightening. Maybe a little too far. I think that's more like it. So I'm under her knee, didn't crop off her head. Her body is straighter now, and then that's just her pose with the tilt of her head. Really beautiful. Fair skin, cool tattoos. I love the light on her face. We got the catch lights in her eye. Her hair is separate from the background, so I don't think no hair light needed. Maybe this side disappears. We maybe could have had a hair light back here, but that doesn't bug me at all. What does bug me is this bit over here, so let's do something about it. So again, we'll create another layer. We use our AI select tool. There's a bunch of ways to do this. I think I'm gonna do this in stages. So the first stage is I'm just gonna darken that bit. We'll use exposure. If you go too far, it looks a little weird. So you gotta do this in stages. So I'm also gonna tackle it with vignetting, and then I might also use a linear mask as well. But so step one, we're gonna knock that down a little bit. I think step two, we're gonna do a linear gradient mask. So another layer, linear gradient, hold down the shift key to straighten it. Gosh darn it, even though I do that, make sure it's on the right side. I'm gonna subtract her out of it, her booty out of there too. And then we'll turn it down there. I think that's fine. What I'm hemming and hawing about is I don't want to lose the red. Let's get it there. Maybe one other thing. Let's see what our vignetting does too. I think let's stop there. The next image, the close-up portrait, that'll be gone anyway, so no sense fussing too much with it. But that definitely, it's not a light bulb now. See how distracting it is? You don't notice it until you remove it. But see how distracting it is when it's there and how that just calms it down? Even you can hear me breathe out a sigh of relief. That's weird how things like that stress me out or calm me. But one other thing, let's see, I don't think I need that layer. But let's take a look at her face. Focus is a little soft. It doesn't bug me. Well, we zoomed in quite a bit, but focus is a little soft. I think her skin is perfect. Maybe a couple little dots. I don't know what those are, but let's see what, let's go. It's just taking the shadow out from under these dots here, which I think is fine. So we're under 10. How about her eyes? Beautiful eyes. Let's see here. So we've got that pupil and iris mask. I didn't show you the pull down this time. It's, for me, it's always got on pupil and iris. But let's see here. We'll brighten them up a little bit. I think that's enough. How about the color? You got to be careful messing around with the color of model's eyes. See, green. I don't think we're going to mess with it. I think I like the color of her eyes. The way they are. Sharpening might be weird with the rest of the image being a little soft on the focus. Doesn't even help at all. Oh, that helps a little bit. That really sharpens it up. You might not be able to see this in the recording. I can barely see it myself. So I think those catch lights are really good. I love the way those catch lights look. The catch lights are these little white dots, just if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. They're the perfect size. They're off to the left. Really kind of cinematic, especially with this background. What's in these catch lights? That's my strobe, if it wasn't obvious. I know some of you are like, no, but that's what makes a catch light. If you go too high, if you put your light too high, if you're doing clamshell lighting, or you get that light too high above their head, you'll lose the catch light because the hood of the eyelid will block it. So you got to be careful of that. And that's exactly 45 degrees. It could be a little bit lower so that it's in the center of her iris. Or, yeah, the center of her iris. But I think it's fine. Anywhere within the iris, it looks good to me. This one is probably a little too high. This one looks perfect. But as an oil painter, and I paint portraits a lot, the catch light is super important. If you screw up the catch lights, it really screws up the gaze. So I probably pay a little more attention to that than most people. That being said, I think as a photographer, one should pay attention to that catch light. All right, so I said, I think what I'm going to do is instead of, I know I made a copy, but instead of going through all of the settings again on the copy, I'm going to delete this copy and I'll make a copy of the one that we retouched. And that way I just have to crop it. I want to do that. So let's see here. So I like to include, here, I can show you here. I like to include, so if you crop above the narrowest part of the waist, it looks a little weird. I like to leave a little bit of the waist where it starts to expand back out. It makes it look more feminine, and to me it also makes it more flattering. It makes the thinner area look thinner in my mind than if you were to crop it higher. And then also you want to be careful about not cropping above the elbow joints. And then this really, for me, really focuses on her eyes and her expression. Let me just look at it real quick. I don't think the focus is good enough to do just something like that. It also, out of context, it makes it weird that her shoulders are up high, but with the context of the rest of her body, I like that better. There's more context this way, I think. Cool tattoos. Man, that must hurt getting a tattoo right there. All right, I think that's enough for Erin. So quick before and after. Not too much. All of these models, they're perfect, and the settings are perfect. It's almost a waste of time doing a editing video, but we're doing it, so let's finish up. So this kid, Ed, I remember thinking, I was like, I don't shoot male models too often. What the heck am I going to do with this guy? He was great. I love this look too. I really, in general, I like the eyes looking straight at me, but this is great too. It's expressive is the word I'm looking for. Skin is great. Look at that jawline. Look at that hair. You know what? We did use a hair light for him. Obviously, we caught the front here, but I think I have a hair light too, just because of the separation from the background. You can't see the hair much in this one, but definitely in the other images of him. I think probably a little hot. I think his face, it's got kind of a light bulb thing going on his face. I like it that we caught a little bit of light on his jeans, so you can tell that he's wearing pants. And this pose makes a little more sense. What can we do here? Well, let's start with our crop. I can't see the background, so what I'm going to do probably is, just for the sake of cropping, turn up the exposure just so I could see it. Kind of funny, he's in his socks and the background is just a wrinkly fabric background. But that's the cool thing about strobes, is it's easier to get the background to disappear than it is with continuous light. But back to cropping. So let's just try to catch as much of him that makes sense. On that third line, as an artist, I'm definitely aware of the rule of thirds, so we'll try to get his head on one of those thirds. All right, and then we'll turn the exposure back down. There we go. That makes more sense to me. Do I mind this background showing here? I don't mind it. I think when I vignette everything, so maybe when we vignette, I'll get rid of that. His face is still a little too hot for me. Let's just turn it down a bit. I think that makes more sense. Watching the histogram up here, but the histogram is pretty useless. This thing is mostly dark, but I'm just kind of being nitpicky here. Really dark. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Light bulb, for me, that's better. It's still a little hot, but let's see what happens when we add some vignetting too. That'll take it down a bit. That takes it down a little bit. And then, man, not much to do here with him. Let's check his skin. Skin is pretty good. I don't think we need to do anything. Those are all going to be... These freckles, you don't want to remove people's freckles or moles and stuff, because that's who they are versus what's going to be gone in a week or two. I think that looks pretty good. Wonder what... This one I really want to see in black and white too. So let's make a copy of this. So not much to do there, but let's make a copy and just see what it looks like in black and white. So we'll use my preset, turn that exposure, that contrast down. See, that looks better. A little more detail. Take a look at our S-curve. I think my preset already has the S-curve. Let's see, just because his face is already so bright, let's turn that down a bit. How about some details in his hair? Do we want to mess with that a little bit? So let's take a look at the shadows. I think we just need a little bit just to make his hair, make it obvious where his hair is. I don't think we need to go this way, although that is cool, but it's a little distracting. Why don't we go with that? I feel good with that one. Again, I don't get an opportunity to work with men very often, but he was great. He's super expressive, and he was really running through the poses. There, at no point were we like, well, what are we going to do next? It was, he was great. I didn't ask how long he'd been modeling, I don't think, but real pro. All right, enough about that. All right, we got this young lady. Look at those eyes. Betty Davis eyes. Sarah B. I already cropped her, actually. I already did the crop. She's got a really sheer top on. There's no sense in her boobies. Don't make this any better. This is about her face, I guess is what I want to say. So again, I'm just got my crop going. Just trying to think of this background I think I want to get rid of, or at least minimize. It's kind of weird for me that her chest is brighter than her face. So I might have to do something about that. Look at the catch light too, and you can see too, the catch light gives away what my issue is I got my stupid softbox is too low. So remember earlier where the catch light was at 45 degrees to the center of her iris? Now it's actually below the center of her iris, and that's why her chest is brighter than her face. And I think the skin on her face is darker than her chest, which makes sense, right? She doesn't have a tan line, but of course, this gets less sun exposure than the rest of her. I'm just thinking about what I want to tackle first. I think I want to tackle that background. This big letter here. I think it's an X. I think it's the bottom of an X. I think it's XOXO. Let's get rid of that crap. How do I want to tackle that? Well, let's just do straight up background and see if that helps. All right, just check to make sure that our mask is good. We could probably add it down here too. Probably no big deal, but all right. I don't know if it's true, but exposure will take down, it's basically how much light hits the sensor typically, but it will reduce the exposure by knocking that down. But some people say that brightness will take the exposure down without desaturating the color. So I typically, for backgrounds and stuff, I usually use exposure. But for anything on the subject or the model, I use brightness. Apparently brightness doesn't knock down the saturation. I don't know if I can tell the difference or not. So that's pretty good, I guess. Let's just do it before and after. And then we'll add some vignetting. That should take it down a little bit. I could go into Photoshop and remove these as well. Maybe we'll do one more thing. Maybe we'll use that AI just to select them individually. Knock them down. That almost got rid of them completely. Now they're at least abstract. Let's see. Let's do before and after. I like that better. For sure. All right. So we skipped color balance. Let's go back and check our color balance. So we'll go back down to this image layer and take a look at our color balance. So to me, that's already a little bit warm. Don't go too cool. Let's check warm the other way. That's really too warm for me. So I'm going to go back to where it was. I'm going to do something weird, and I'm going to make her a little cooler than I normally would. I think that's more natural to my eye. The only other thing is I wanted to get rid of the brightness on her chest. I'm going to do, let's try a radial mask on her face. Let's get rid of that actually, and let's do it on a new layer. Radial mask. So I'm going to actually brighten her face. Sorry, I should be using my mouse instead of my trackpad. So I think I'm going to brighten her face, and I'm going to brighten her hair too. Her hair's, this is a case where I think a hairline would have been nice. Of course, we're bringing back some of that M now. Let's see if I can remove that. Let's remove that. We don't want to bring that back. So brighten her face a little bit. Her chest is still too bright for me. We're going to go linear mask this time. I'm matching that up with her collarbone. Let's darken that down a little bit. I'm going to go subtle here. This is probably just annoying me and not anyone else. But I think let's do that. All right. Beautiful. Let's do before and after. Pretty subtle changes. I wish I had a hair light for her. Her hair is disappearing. What if we just brighten up her hair? Let's see what this will do. Create a mask for that. This always looks weird to me, but maybe just a little bit. I like that. That's really bugging me. But all right. Just to move forward. How's her skin? Whoopsie. Let's get rid of, hold on. I think I screwed something up. Let me just double check. Nope, we're good. So back on the image layer. Let's check out her skin. Pretty good. She's got makeup. She might be a little fuzzy, and that makeup is sitting on top of her fuzziness. Let's see what this will do. I'm not seeing any change. What's going on here? We're on the image layer. Oh, you did get rid of some stuff. We're good. I think what I'm going to do is make a new layer, though. Back here, layer, and then go back up to 20. All right, and then we can go here. Do on, off. I guess it doesn't do. I guess that adjustment isn't on that layer. To go that far. There, I think. And then one other thing, since this is a portrait, if we could do, there's 2 blood vessels in her eyes. We're getting really nitpicky now, but those arrows are bugging me. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Oh, and let's do iris and pupil and iris. Pull her face down a little bit. Let's see both of them. What a cutie, right? All right, let's just turn up the brightness a little bit, maybe. I think that's probably enough. And then maybe sharpen a little bit. I think that's it. Beautiful. Let's look at before and after. She's the star. Nothing else, all this other stuff, to me at least, doesn't matter. It's more distracting. Knock down the light on her chest. That's perfect for me. Well, let's see it in black and white. 3. That's beautiful too. Beautiful. Let's get rid of our contrast. Oops, that's just her eyes. Let me get back here. Check my curve. Ooh, that's a big ass curve. Beautiful. Let's see, do I have a preference? They're both pretty good. All right. I think that's all of them. Get rid of that. We'll select them all. And I do before and after on all of them. Pretty cool. Well, that's it. I think that's it. This is how I do it. And then, like I said, if there's multiples of the same style or whatever, I just use this copy and paste tool. The only thing, you have to adjust the crop every once in a while. But other than that, it's pretty great. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Hit me with a note or comments if you got any questions. But we will talk to you later. Have a good night.